Hi, in this video we'll learn how to find the zeros of a function. So zeros of a function is, they're nothing but the x-intercepts of the function. Here, if you see this parabola, these 2 points are called the zeros of this function, and zeros of the function are the x-intercepts, and x-intercepts are nothing but where the parabola crosses the x-axis. And you can notice that at this point, I have some value for x, but the y value is 0. And here also we have the same thing, that we have some value for x and y value 0. So what happens is whenever the graph crosses the x-axis, at that point the y coordinate is always 0. If the graph crosses the x-axis at some point, then that point y coordinate is always 0. So I can write that if I need to find the zeros of this function, then I have to set my y value equal to 0. And what is the y value here in this function? It's nothing but f of x. So I can rewrite f of x as y is equal to x squared minus 15x plus 54. And I know that when I have to find the zeros of the function, my y coordinate will always be 0. So this will be 0 is equal to x squared minus 15x plus 54. Now let's write down this on the left-hand side. X squared minus 15x plus 54 is equal to 0. Okay. Now this quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Now let's identify a, b's, and c's in this. So a is the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. B is the coefficient of x, which is negative 15 here. And c is the constant term, which is 54. C is the constant term, which is 54. Now, we will use the AC method in which we multiply a and c. So we'll multiply and see what is our A. A is 1 and C is 54. So we'll multiply 1 times 54 is going to be 54. And we'll factor this equation. Now, how do we factor this equation is we need to think of two factors, which when multiplied to give me the product of the first term and the last term, which is AC, which is 54 in a case. So I need to think of two factors, which when multiplied to give me 54, but when added should give me negative 15. So the factors has to be same. So when I add them, I should get the middle term, which is negative 15. Again, so to factor this equation, I will have to think of two factors, which when multiplied to give me 54, but when added should give me the middle term, which is negative 15. Okay, now let's write down the factors of 54. The factors of 54 are, let's say 9 and 6, because 9 times 6 is 54. And then 18 times 3 is 54. And then 27 times 2 is 54. And then that's all. Okay. So we need to figure out which one is the right fit for these two, okay? So first of all, let's take 9 and 6. Okay, 9 and 6. Now, my product is 54, and when I add them, I should get negative 15. When can my product be positive? When is my product positive? So I get the positive product in two cases. When both the numbers are negative, when the product of two numbers, when I have two negative numbers, that time I get the product as positive. If I have both the numbers as positive, then the product is positive. So if I multiply two negative numbers, then I get the positive number. If I multiply two positive numbers, I get the positive number. So these two conditions. So if I have a product which is equal to 54, then either both the factors has to be negative or both of them has to be positive. Okay. So let's say if both of them are positive, let's say both of them are positive. So 9 and 6. So 9 times 6 is 54, which is good. But 9 plus 6 is not equal to negative 15, right? 9 plus 6 is not equal to negative 15. That means both the factors has to be negative. Now this one is not the right fit. That means both the factors has to be negative. Now, in case if we take negative 9 and negative 6, let's see, negative 9 times negative 6, which is equal to positive 54, which is good. The first one is correct. Now, let's say if we take the same factors again, negative 9 plus negative 6, writing that inside the parentheses just to avoid the confusion. Negative 9 plus negative 6 will be negative 15. So the second one is also correct. That means the factors are negative 9 and negative 6. So I can write here negative 9, negative 6. That means, excuse me. So negative 9 and negative 6 are my factors. Now how do I write this? I'll write x inside the parentheses. Since negative 9 is my factor, I'll write negative 9 here. And then again, close the parentheses and open the parentheses again. X minus, because negative 6 is my factor, so I'll write negative 6 here. And this is equal to 0. Okay, now coincidentally we got this as the first one, but if we take the second one, let's say if we do 18 and 3. So we've got the right answer, but let's for assumption if we take 18 times 3. So we know that either both of them has to be negative. So 18 and 3 has to be negative and we get 54. And then if we do that, if we take negative 18 and negative 3, will this be true? So let's say this is negative 18 plus negative 3. Do we get negative 15? No, because negative 18 plus negative 3 is going to be negative 21. So this is not correct. The same thing will happen with 27 times 2. So the factors which we can choose here, the best one which fits here is negative 9 and negative 6. So again, going back here, now the product of two quantities is 0 here. The product of two quantities is 0. So using the zero product property, which says that if the product of two quantities is 0, then one of them has to be equal to 0. Let's take a look at this. If x times 0 is equal to 0 here. Now the product of these two quantities is 0 because one of them is 0. So the same thing will happen here. The product of these two quantities is 0. That means one of them has to be 0. And we don't know which one is 0. So let's say x minus 9, either x minus 9 will be equal to 0 or x minus 6 will be equal to 0. And we need to solve these two equations for x. So here, how do I get rid of negative 9? I need x by itself. So I'll add 9 on both sides. So negative 9 and positive 9 will add up to 0. And this will be equal to x is equal to 0 plus 9 will be just 9. And here, what do? Is I can add 6 on both sides to get x by itself. When I'm adding 6, this will go away. X is equal to 6. That means the roots of this function or the zeros of this function are x is equal to 9 and x is equal to 6. Okay, x is equal to, let's sketch a parabola here. So the roots of this function are x equals 9 and x equals 6. So here, this is 6 comma 0, and this can be assumed as 9 comma 0. And the graph opened, the parabola opened upwards because coefficient a is greater than 0. So whenever a is greater than 0, then the parabola opened upwards. When a is less than 0, then the parabola opened downwards. But in this case, since our a is greater than 0, it's 1, it's positive, and it's greater than 0. That's why the parabola will open upwards. Now, we can also go ahead and check if these roots are correct or not. What we can do is we can plug in the value of x. Into the original function. So we'll not check both of them, but let's just check one of them. Let's check x equals 6 here. So f of x is equal to, I'm plugging in x equals 6. So this will be 6. And this will be replacing x with 6. So this will be 6 squared minus 15 times 6 plus 54. So this will be, f of 6 will be equal to 0 because y is always equal to 0 when we are finding the zeros of the function. 6 squared will be 36. And then 15 times 6 is, 6 times 5 is 30. And then 6 times 1 is 6 and plus 3 is 9 plus 54. 36 plus 54 will be 90, and 90 minus 90 is going to be 0. That means this is right. That means x is equal to 6 is right. And we can also do that by plugging x equals 9 to this function. Let's do that real quick. So I'm plugging x equals 9 into this function. This will be equal to 9 squared minus 15 times 9 plus 54. And 9 squared is going to be 81. And of course, I'll have 0 here because the y coordinate is always 0. That means f of x will be equal to 0 when I'm finding the zeros of this function. Minus 15 times 9 is going to be 9 times 5 will be 45. And then 9 times 1 is 9. And plus 4 is going to be 13. So this will be 135 plus 54. Okay. Then let's add these two. 81 plus 54 is going to be 135, and 135 minus 135 will be 0. So we have got 0 is equal to 0. That means the zeros of this function are x equals 9 and x equals 6. This step is not at all mandatory. If you want to do, you can do it just to check your answer if you get the right, if you have got the right zeros of this function, or else you don't have to do it. Okay, that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in next video.